everyone, welcome back to Katie's Favorite Recipes. Today I've got 4 great weeknight dinners that I think you all are going to love. These are so simple. They are also delicious. So let's go ahead and get started with this first one, which is Copycat Taco Bell Beefy Burrito Melts. So I've got 2 pounds of hamburger here, and I'm just going to go ahead and start cooking that. While my hamburger starts cooking, I'm also going to go ahead and start cooking my rice. So I'm using this Old El Paso cheesy Mexican rice in this box, and I'm just going to follow the instructions on the back of that. So I'm going to pour everything in there, add my water, my butter, all of that it says on the back. I'm going to mix that all together, cover it up, and let it cook like it says. You can use any Mexican rice or just any rice really that you want to use, but this is the kind that I'm using, and it turned out really well. But now we're going to go back over here to our hamburger meat, and it's been cooking. We're going to crumble it up the way we want it. I'm going to strain that once it's finished, and then I'm going to add 2 packets of my favorite taco seasoning, which is the Taco Bell. You can use any brand that you want, or if you had homemade taco seasoning as well, you could do that. But I'm just going to follow the instructions on the back of those and add that to my strained hamburger meat that is fully cooked. I'm going to stir that in, and once I get that good and stirred in, I'm just going to let it simmer like it says. You just want to let everything cook for about maybe 10 more minutes and let all of that water cook out and let it become a glaze onto your meat. And once that happens, we're going to go ahead and add in 1 can of refried beans. If you wanted to add 2, you could do that. You could also, change out a pound of hamburger for 2 cans of the refried beans if you wanted to do that and use less meat. But we're going to go ahead and add that in and stir that up really well. Once the refried beans get heated up, they're going to mix smoothly into this hamburger meat. So just stir it and just let it get warmed up. And then while that's finishing, I'm also going to go ahead and start heating up my nacho sauce. So this is the kind I'm using, and it's just a 15-ounce can. But you can use whatever kind you want. But I'm going to get that heated up. And then once that's finished, these are really ready to start assembling. So I've got my soft flour tortillas here. And I'm just going to lay that down on a plate, and I'm going to add my meat. Once I get my meat on there, I'm going to next layer my rice. So I'm just going to scoop out a spoonful of that. Next, I'm going to add my gourmet nacho cheese sauce to this. So I'm just going to spoon some onto my layers of meat and rice. And then once I get that put on there, I'm just going to sprinkle some shredded cheese on there. I'm using sharp, but you can use any kind you want. After I finish getting that on there the way I like it, I'm going to add some Doritos to this. And I am going to crush mine up just a little bit. I'm using the nacho cheese kind. I'm just going to crush mine a little bit so it won't be such huge pieces in my burrito. That way it'll fold up easier and everything. But feel free to do that however you want. But once I finish getting my handful of Doritos on there, I'm going to go ahead and start rolling up my burrito. So the best way I've found is just to pinch the sides in and then just fold it over into itself. And then that just makes a nice little rolled up burrito. And then that's it. These were super simple to make. They were easy to throw together on a busy weeknight, and they were delicious. I hope you all love these if you try them, and enjoy. Next, we're going to be making Philly cheesesteak pasta. So I'm going to start off by chopping up my onions and my peppers and things like that. So I'm going to be using about half of an onion, and I'm using my fine dicing blade on my vegetable chopper. You can chop these up however you want. I know some people like theirs into longer strips, and then some like theirs finely chopped. So just however you want to do it that your family will enjoy. But I'm going to be doing a green bell pepper, and I'm also going to do a red bell pepper. But I'm only going to do about half of these. I'm not going to use the whole pepper, but feel free to adjust that however you want. Once I get that done, I'm going to start on my pasta. So I'm using Penne Pasta, and I'm just going to dump the whole box into some boiling water and let that get started. While that's cooking, I'm going to take 2 pounds of hamburger meat. I'm going to throw that in a skillet along with my onions and peppers, and I'm going to season my hamburger meat the way I like it. I'm using Montreal steak season. I know I use Montreal steak a lot, but it is such a good seasoning. It goes on really anything, and I just love the flavor it adds. So I'm going to season that the way I like it with that. Feel free to use whatever seasonings you want. I'm going to mix that in and start crumbling up my hamburger meat. But then I decided I wanted to add about a half a teaspoon of minced garlic. So I went ahead and made a little spot and put that in there and let it get fragrant. And then I mixed it in and cooked that all together. Once that's finished and my beef is fully cooked through, I'm going to go ahead and strain the grease out of that, and then I'm going to put it back into my skillet, and I'm going to add 1 cup of beef broth. Then after I do that, I'm going to add 1 block of cream cheese. This is like an 8-ounce block. And then I also had just a little piece of another one. It was less than half. It was just a little corner. And I'm just going to go ahead and add that in as well. It was just a piece I needed to use. So I went ahead and threw that in. Feel free to add a little more or a little less of cream cheese though, however you want to do it. And then once we get that in there, we're going to let it melt down. I went ahead and went over this with some more seasoning. And we're just going to mix all of this in and let this melt and get good and creamy. My pasta is almost fully cooked. I did not cook it all the way. I left just a little bit of a bite in it. And then I'm going to strain it and I'm going to go ahead and add that into this sauce. And that way it can finish cooking and really get that sauce soaked up in it. But because it's almost all the way cooked, it doesn't fully soak up all of this sauce. So this pasta is still really good and creamy. It's not dry. And it is delicious. So we're just going to go ahead and stir that in, and then we're going to let that cook for about 5 minutes or so. Once that has finished cooking, I'm going to go ahead and add in my favorite cheese for this dish. So I'm going to use the Italian style. It's got different kinds of cheeses in it. It was really good in this dish, but feel free to add any type of cheese that you want to do. Any kind would be good. And I'm just going to do about a cup of that in there, and I'm just going to mix this in and let the cheese melt really well. And then once that cheese is melted, this is done and it is ready to serve. This meal was so good and it was super easy to just throw together. It was that perfect comfort meal, you know, with this really cold weather. We kind of need that right now. This was so good and it's perfect for any weather, honestly. Next, we're going to be making white sauce enchiladas. If you've never had these, they are amazing and they are so good. They're so easy to throw together. So I'm going to start off by chopping up 2 heads of broccoli. That's my vegetable of choice. If you want to substitute that out for anything, feel free to do that. But we're going to go ahead and chop those up into bite-sized pieces. Then I'm just going to blanch those in some water to make the cooking process quicker. And then I'm also going to go ahead and start chopping up my chicken. So I've got about 2 pounds of chicken here, and I'm just going to chop these up into little bite-sized pieces as well. If you wanted to do strips, you could do that, however you want to do it. Now that I'm finished chopping up my chicken, I'm going to go over here to my skillet, and I've melted about a tablespoon or 2 of butter in there, and then I'm going to start cooking my chicken and seasoning it. I'm going to use salt, black pepper. I'm going to add some smoked paprika to taste, so feel free to add or take away any of these seasonings, but this smoked paprika really gave this a good flavor. I feel like it really complemented the taco seasoning that we're going to be using here soon, but feel free to use whatever you want. But while that's cooking, I'm going to go over here and start mixing up my cream cheese. So I've got about 4 ounces of softened cream cheese. I just popped it in the microwave for a little bit. That's about half a block of cream cheese. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into a mixing bowl, and I'm going to take 1 packet of taco seasoning. It doesn't matter what kind, just whatever kind you like. And I'm going to dump that in there. And then I've got some Monterey Jack shredded cheese. This bag is about 2 cups worth, and I'm going to dump about half of it, so about a cup right now, into this mixture. And we're just going to mix this up really well. I was using my whisk, but as you can see, that didn't work out very well. So I had to get my spatula out, and I'm just going to stir this up. Once I get all that mixed up, and my chicken is finished, I'm going to add my chicken to this, and it's going to help that it's coming straight out of the skillet and it is still good and warm. It's going to help that cream cheese stay melted and coat to everything really well and evenly, as well as help melt up the cheese. Once I stir that in, I'm going to add my broccoli in next. The reason I added the broccoli in after I already stirred the chicken in was that way I wouldn't have to worry about my broccoli breaking down before the chicken was coated well, because I've already blanched it. Once that's mixed up, get your tortilla shells and just go ahead and start spooning this mixture into those. And then once you get that, we're going to pinch the ends of these tortilla shells in and roll it up into itself. I'm going to lay those into a greased 9x13 casserole dish, and depending on how much mixture you spoon into these tortilla shells, this will make you about 8 to 10. I believe it made me 9, and they all fit perfectly in my casserole dish, so I don't know if it could have really held another one or not. Once we finish getting all of those done and rolled up and laid nicely into our casserole dish, we're going to go ahead and start mixing up our sauce that we're going to pour over top of this. So I'm going to be using about 3/4 of a cup of heavy whipping cream, and I'm going to stir that into the bowl that I mixed my chicken and broccoli and all that up in with all that seasoning. And then I'm also going to use the rest of my Monterey Jack cheese, so about a cup. And I'm going to scrape the sides of this bowl to get all of that seasoning down in this mixture. And then we're just going to evenly, as best we can, pour this over top of our enchiladas. And we're going to take our spatula and just kind of smooth it out as even as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. Our oven's preheated at 350 and we're going to pop those in there and bake those for about 20 to 25 minutes. And I did these uncovered and that's it. These are so good and cheesy. They were delicious. They're perfect for a weeknight. I'll cut this open for you so you can see just how creamy it is on the inside and just see all of that sauce coated on everything. This is so delicious. This is something you definitely want to add to your meal plan. For this last recipe, we're going to be making stuffed pepper casserole. So I've got about a half of an onion, and then I'm also going to do half of a red bell pepper, half of an orange bell pepper, and half of a green bell pepper. You can go ahead and add in the whole ones if you want, but I'm just doing half, so that way for us, I won't have way too many peppers in there and then still get all of the different colors of the different flavors, but some people like a lot in there, so feel free to do it how you want. Once I finish that, I'm going to go ahead and start cooking about a teaspoon of minced garlic. You can leave that out if you don't like that. And then I'm going to add in my hamburger meat. I've got about 2 pounds. I'm also going to cook my onions and peppers with my hamburger meat as well. And then I'm going to season my hamburger meat to taste. I'm just using Montreal steak. It's got like salt and pepper, stuff like that in it. You can use whatever you want. We are going to be using different seasonings later. But once that's finished, we are going to strain that. And we're going to add in 3.5 cups of beef broth. And we're going to also go ahead and add in 3 cups of white instant rice. It does need to be instant if you're going to follow this recipe. Stir that up and then we're going to start adding some seasonings. So I'm adding 3 tablespoons of Italian seasoning. And then I'm also going to add 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Next, I'm going to add in about 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. You can change that if you don't really care for that or you want more. Go ahead and add more. And then I'm going to stir that up really well and make sure that that is mixed in and melted evenly. And once that is in there, I'm going to add a little bit of salt, not a whole lot. Once we get that mixed up, we're going to go over to our 9x13 casserole dish that is greased. And we're going to pour this into that. Just make sure to spread it out evenly. While I've been baking this, I've had my oven preheating at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I'm just going to cover this up with aluminum foil, and I'm going to pop that in the oven for about 20 minutes. Once that's done and my rice is tender, I'm going to take it out and uncover it. I'm going to add a couple different cheeses to the top of this. So I'm going to be using Italian style shredded cheese, and then I'm also going to be using the cheddar blend shredded cheese. Just cover the top fully with your favorite cheese, and then once you do that, go ahead and put this back in the oven for another 15 minutes, and that's it. This is ready to serve. It was so good and so simple. This recipe fed my family of 4, plus it gave us leftovers, so we really enjoyed that for lunch the next day or dinner. But I hope you all have enjoyed these videos. Thanks for watching.